Wait. So she's up. So, good evening. Good evening. So we'll go ahead and get started with tonight's Commission for the Arts meeting at 5:02. Call to order. Roll call.
Let the record show that all commissioners are present.
Thank you. We'll stand for Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 4, special presentations and proclamations.
There are none.
Thank you. And oral communications at this point.
My apologies. I do have one presentation, which is I'd like to introduce you to the new Director of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts, Dave Knopp.
Happy Monday to the group. I'm honored to be here. I'm on my second Monday as Director for Park, Recreation, and Cultural Arts. I have 34 years experience in community service. I've worked for the city of Poway, El Cajon, Coronado, and in the last 9 years, I've been Chief of Operations for the County of San Diego. Coming to the Encinitas is a fantastic opportunity to use that education and experience to help connect the community here to their services and facilities. I'm very excited to be here. Sorry if I'm a little nervous. Second commission, youth commission beat you. But, you know, this is such a great community with the Arts Center coming online later this summer. It was a great place to come to. I've touched a lot of different things. My experience with the arts, a lot of that experience in Coronado with some of the pieces that came in with the community center. I was the first manager of the community center in Coronado. The Seascape, which was a kaleidoscope art piece. If you've been in the bay, on the bay and the different art pieces that were out there, the kaleidoscope came to be part of our community center. And then also working with the Coronado Playhouse, the theater itself was part of the community center, and having an ongoing relationship and being successful with the theater were great opportunities. I look forward to having more of that experience here. I would gladly answer any questions you may have.
How do you pronounce your last name? How do you pronounce your last name?
Sure. The K is silent. It's just Knopp.
Knopp. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Director Knopp. Yeah, welcome. It's super great to have a director in place of the fabulous job that Roy did in the interim. And I think the relationship between the commission and staff is a really exciting one, and I look forward to fomenting it so that we can support all of the work that council and the city and we do.
Thank you.
So from there, we'll move on to changes to the agenda. And there's one.
Is there no oral communications?
No, we need to go to oral communications
I'm sorry.
first.
Yeah.
Okay. For oral communications, we have 3 speakers that would like to speak to an agenda item. The first speaker is Kathleen Lees, but she would like to speak when we get to agenda item, after agenda item 8A, after you review the work plan. The next speaker we have is Deanne Sabak. Zabek, and she would like to speak to Agenda Item 8A when we get to that. And the third speaker is Rosemary Kimball, and she would like to speak to Agenda Item 8B regarding the sculpture.
Okay, it's Kimball,
Kimball,
like Belle de Versailles.
okay. And as a reminder, each speaker has 3 minutes to address the commission.
Great. So we'll look forward to those comments when we get to them. Now moving on to changes to the agenda, number 6. We'd like to move action item 8B to 8A so that we can hear the report for Pacific View first before we move on to the work plan.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Sure. Yeah, moving 8B to 8A, swapping the two. Mm-hmm.
So 2 before 8A.
Thank you.
Eight B before 2A. Mm-hmm. Yes. Moving on to the approval of the minutes. Does anyone have a motion to a discussion or a motion? I'll move to approve the minutes from April 1st, regular minute meeting.
I'll second.
Let the record show that the motion passes with 6 commissioners voting yes and 1 Commissioner Hebert abstaining.
Okay, so we'll move on to action 8B, Pacific View Art Center report to receive from Colette.
All right, well, we are getting closer. Did a preliminary site walkthrough this morning, taking a look at things as we get ready to have door hardware changed out to accommodate our badges and some other exciting things. We are looking on track to open in August. Most important, exciting part of this whole thing is that SDG&E put in the transformer, so we are powerful once again. We are actively recruiting. Those recruitments go through May 9th for some positions at Pacific View. I included them there in the report and encourage anyone interested in those to please submit an application. In addition to these part-time staff positions, we are continuing to look for the contract instructors, which ties into more of that programming. We have programming that will start that first week. We anticipate to be the week of August 12th, August 13th being the first open day. But the ramp is kind of long between onboarding to then when classes actually start. So keeping that machine going and recommending contract instructors is really important. And of course, fundraising, always important, making sure that if there are any opportunities that can fund equipment, scholarships, things like that, kindly bring those to staff's attention. Any questions?
Is there a list of equipment that's needed for donation or?
We are working on that. We had initially developed a list of what we thought it might be. And then based on the first round of contract instructors that were onboarded, it didn't line up with what they might need. So now we're shifting that a little bit with really what's going to make the most amount of sense. So it's not finalized, but it will be very shortly.
Maybe once that's finalized, you could shoot it to the commission.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Can you describe more about the fundraising efforts?
Just in terms of any kind of grants or donors, other kinds of opportunities that might become available if you should hear them, or that item that's in your work plan directly related to that, it's all tied in. So there's a number of opportunities, and once Pacific View opens, we'll probably be able to better define what some other needs are and be able to chat more about what we would be specifically looking for.
Are there any more questions? Discussion? Okay. So far, is there anything planned for an opening celebration?
We have identified 2 potential dates that are not being made public just yet. There will be a VIP ribbon cutting, and I am not in control of that list. That 100% about that. But we will have public open house events the rest of that first week, which we anticipate to be the first week in August. But once we know that for sure, we'll start to make that information completely public, what the dates are, what the opportunities are.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on then to 8A, Commission for the Arts Work Plan, which was approved at City Council with a few stipulations or additions. I think what we'll do is go through, starting through the items. We have any updates can be provided, and I'm tempted to assign ad hocs while we move through the list down the line. What do you guys think? Yeah, okay. One note about the ad hocs this year. I'm really hoping everyone has had some time to look through and consider, A, what we would all each like to participate in, B, if you can evaluate the amount of time you can actually spend on it, and judiciously choose which ones you want to be on. And C, it would be great to discuss some goals of each ad hoc at each of our meetings, and perhaps, assign some to-dos during each month so that when we come back for updates, we can hold each other more responsible for kind of ticking away at each item. Okay, so the Cultural Tourism Committee is all set. Number 2, research the funding opportunities. That's all of us. Does anyone have any updates or comments for that one? No? Okay. Number 3, assisting with the promotion of city arts programs. And this one we broke down to 3 subjects or focus areas. The first being Pacific View, the second being Art Night, and the third being more of an umbrella term for other programs. Is there anyone who would like to be on that ad hoc for promoting Pacific View, or have questions before we go there? And just as a reminder, we can go through, the opportunity can come up to jump on an ad hoc, and that will be for the year. But if it can have up to 3 of us, and if you're not ready to, and there's still a place open, then we can do that in the next meeting, or you can send an email. Or, yeah.
I have a question. What the promotion? What would the ad hoc look like for this? Like a separate meeting, or?
I think all ad hocs can meet as many times as possible,
Right.
and as necessary throughout the month, and they can discuss, goals for the month and long-term goals for the year, and then start making a plan of action to get those things done, whether that's a recommendation, whether that's research, whether that's actual being out on the town promoting and doing, that's the work of the ad hoc at that point. Plus all of us can individually during the year.
So it's a kind of brainstorming to figure out what methods we could use to promote it. Okay.
I don't want to get ahead of things. I was going to volunteer for the art night ad hoc, just because, you know, I feel as though Pacific View may end up overshadowing art night a little bit, and would hate for that to, you know, not get the exposure it deserves. And also just, you know, some ideas have thought about, you know, implementing for helping promote that. So
Great. So for this item, for 3, arts advocacy.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, great.
We're doing a separate ad hoc. The idea is a separate ad hoc for each of those 3 areas, focus areas, right?
Yeah, we can jump there. Does anyone else want to be on the art night ad hoc for the promotion for?
I'm happy to promote all areas of, you know, whatever needs to be promoted. With that being said, if, you know, you feel you have a need for an ad hoc, I'm happy to jump in. But generally speaking, I'll just try to promote whatever's happening.
Yeah, just as a reminder, this is something we all decided upon when we wanted to submit the work plan. So it doesn't mean that we'll all necessarily right away jump on ad hocs, and we are all absolutely responsible for promoting throughout the year, throughout the month, all events. This is just more so that some minds can be on it, on each project consistently throughout the year. So I'll just go through Pacific View. Anyone want to hop on there?
Yes.
Okay.
I've done art night. I think I would like to try Pacific View.
Great. I will also do Pacific View promotion. And for other programs, we will just want to leave that open for now. Okay. So there's 2 open spots for art night, 1 open spot for Pacific View, and 3 open spots for focusing on the other areas. We'll move on.
The question?
I can hop on the Pacific View.
Okay, great. So Niti, so Pacific View is the 3 of us? Yeah. Okay.
The other, I was wondering if we can clarify, like the other programs, would that be some things that just might come into fruition to some kind of...
All other arts and
throughout
cultures
the-
programs, so anything from the Nutcracker to the weekly concerts at the, you know, library, everything that's happening in the city, all of the programs that we hear about every month. Okay. Item number 4, research and coordinate brief presentations or speakers to share information relevant to work plan goals. So this is about having speakers come to our actual commission meetings.
May I ask a question on that, too? Is that bringing in solely guests, like external, or could commissioners themselves be able to be a part of that?
This is for external, or members of staff. Yeah, if a commissioner wants to speak to the commission about anything in particular in depth, then a commissioner-related agenda item would be the way to go for that, which we have an opportunity for each meeting. So would anyone like to be on that ad hoc? And
Yeah, I'll throw my name in for that.
great.
If anybody else wants to join.
I will, if no one's chomping at the bit, yeah. Oh, that's probably.
I'll join too.
Okay, great. So Commissioner Abert, Commissioner Romer, and Fox. Okay. So moving on to arts education, number 5, research and advise city staff on feasibility of artist residency programs. And this is also, I'll read it so the public knows. Programs that do not have a habitation requirement and other community engagement programs at Pacific View Art Center and other city-run facility by researching existing programs, gathering information such as art, genre, program structure, term, funding, et cetera, et cetera. last year we had an ad hoc for an artist in residency, and this says all. I was thinking we could also break this into 2 ad hocs, as long as it's very clearly stated that one is for the artist in residency and one would be for community engagement programs. But that's just an option, so I'd love to hear if you all think that's necessary, interesting.
I think it'd be interesting to have an ad hoc for those. I'm new to this, but it seems like if we have an ad hoc, we can do more than if we're just working together as a larger group. Is that right?
Yeah, we're only able to come together as a group of 7 here on Monday
Right.
nights. Very, very occasionally, we can call for a special meeting. Those are usually about time-sensitive issues and required staff time and all of this. So reliably, we can all speak about anything on the agenda together as a body on Monday, on the first Monday of every night of every month. Ad hocs are an opportunity to meet up to 3 of us together and just dig in. And then we can come back as a group and report to the whole and take any suggestions. Even if you're not on an ad hoc individually, you can be working on any item on the work plan, but you cannot discuss it with anyone else.
I think it would make sense to have these as ad hocs if we have enough interest.
So if we were to do that, I'll like to express interest in an ad hoc on community engagement
Okay, great.
myself.
Me too.
Anybody else? And Carla, Jennifer, is anyone else interested in that ad hoc? I'll go ahead and hop on. Although I'm now not taking my own advice, right? But I do not have a full-time job besides being a mom, so.
Would you please repeat, just confirm the commissioners who are on that?
For the community engagement part, it is Commissioner Morakovitz. I know, I just need to see visually. Commissioner Romer and Commissioner Fox.
Thank you.
And then for an artist in residency research, again, this is more of a creative artist in residency rather than a traditional habitation one. Okay, nobody thus far, so we'll just leave that open and touch upon it later. For number 6, all commissioners will support the City Arts Education Program by sharing the program proposal process with potential teaching artists. And at the request of city staff, the ad hoc will review teaching artist program submissions and make recommendations on acceptance.
There's a little discrepancy there because it says all commissioners, yet it says ad hoc.
I just see ad hoc on the screen.
She's saying in the text.
Well, this is true. All commissioners, again, this is the work of all commissioners. So we will all be promoting this and reaching out to teaching artists and hopefully get that word out. The ad hoc is when city staff requests it. The ad hoc would be responsible for reviewing the teaching artist program submissions. I think this is about if there's a lot of submissions that are very similar and choosing potentially a program between them.
That's correct. If we receive a number of proposals that are nearly identical, the commission would be the advisory board to the advisory group who would come back and make their recommendation as to which ones to put forward.
I can help with that.
Okay.
We haven't gotten to that point yet. We haven't.
Right, that's not happening yet,
experienced
but if
that
it
yet.
does,
Yes.
this ad hoc would be the first to jump in.
I'm interested.
Okay.
I'm also interested in that.
Okay, great. So Commissioner Fator, Commissioner Campbell, and Commissioner Kadakia. Fader, sorry. I'm really trying to use last names, so thank you. I don't know what it is going on in my mind, but yes.
And then point of order, was it that all of the speakers wanted to speak at the end of the work plan? Just wanted to confirm.
I wasn't clear on the other two speakers. I know Speaker Kathleen Lees wants to speak at the end, but can you clarify, Diane Sabak, did you have a specific time when you wanted to speak on your agenda item? Okay,
It's next.
the sculpture program, okay.
Or it's
so
coming-
we'll-
it's coming
We'll
up.
we'll go with you for that, okay.
And just a point of order, clarify, I know Kathleen would like to speak after we've discussed it. And Deanne and Rosemary, when would you like to speak, before or after? If that's okay for me to
Thank you.
ask, but-
It is, I just wanted to make sure we were addressing what they wanted.
No. Okay, so we'll move on to number 7, which is under public art. And this is support the city's public art policy by reviewing city and privately funded public art projects, as well as potential public art donations to the city, and providing input at the request of city staff. And then this is broken up into individual projects, one being the Pacific View Art Center, which is already assigned, the next being the Sculpture Loan Program for Leucadia and Sun Vista locations. So at this point, maybe I'll take the lead here and just check in with everyone, hoping that you were able to at least watch the City Council meetings from April 10th and from March 27th. It's March 27th. The jury put forth a recommendation, the jury panel for the Sculpture Loan Program. That came to us as a commission. We took time and went through it and made our own recommendation to City Council. And then City Council reviewed the item and approved 4 of the 6 recommendations. So the 2 that were not approved were the ones that were going into Leucadia Oaks Park and also to Sun Vista Park. Then when our work plan was being reviewed, we were further tasked to come up with a potentially new criteria for judging, or a new methodology, and potentially taking in new public input as well. In order to move forward then with filling the 2 spots, we have to think on this and make another recommendation to City Council. City Council will then approve, or it will come back to us. And until City Council approves something, then I'll say it like this: once City Council approves a recommendation, then they can move forward in implementing that in order to place sculptures at the 2 missing spots. We can, since we only meet once a month, I think it's valuable to have, I would hope, somewhat of a brief discussion and open it up to everyone to share what they're thinking. I think the best way forward is to assign an ad hoc that would look to kind of consolidate goals as far as a certain timeline of thinking about the public art policy. I would even venture to say that thinking about how the public art policy works is a big one, rather than diving into the specifics yet of reviewing juring criteria. The juring criteria was one that a previous commission came up with, the methodology was something that the staff inherited, and we all moved forward with it. And I think, we all felt fairly confident with our recommendation, and so it's come back to us. So the ad hoc would be discussing all of that. At the same time, I'm trying to keep my comments limited, but the program is long in coming. It's exciting to inaugurate it, and it has been inaugurated with these 4 sculptures, and I think that's awesome. 2 empty sites. Council had kind of mixed reactions to how long those they would feel comfortable with those being left unfilled. I will note that Administrator Murphy did a great job bringing to light the fact that the stipend was not very high, and that in order to reach a much broader pool of artists, more money helps, and that's something that couldn't be actually applied until next fiscal year. So just to take into consideration when you're thinking about timing. Yeah, so maybe we can go down the line if anyone has any comments or questions, and the end of the discussion will be assigning an ad hoc. Or if anyone just wants to pipe in.
I'll jump in briefly. The wording about the more formal methodology, I think also included, there was talk about possibly a rating threshold, like anything below 3, I think was mentioned in terms of the public. But I guess I wasn't quite clear on, so because those sites, the recommendations for sites C and D were rejected or not approved, that is it a situation where we're starting from scratch, finding new, having to find, I mean, obviously that's going to take a while, and but is that the situation we're in now, where they're entirely new artworks or a new pool of artworks need to be?
In some ways, that's part of our recommendation. So it makes sense given the current public policy and the public art policy and the procedure that all the artists previously just went through, that a new RFP would be put out, and new sculptures would be evaluated. And then part of our recommendation would be both reaching out, getting more public input to specifically for each site, as well as potentially, we were tasked about this rating system, and Councilmember Ellers said that he would like us to come up with some sort of rating system if we agreed with that. And so I think the first step would be to have a kind of broad-based discussion about best ways forward.
Right.
Lots of other cities have very different public art policies than we do. And there's a lot of very valuable methods of reaching out to artists, understanding who the artists are in the community, attracting artists, having an already vetted group of artists. It kind of goes on and on. Other cities also put a cap where, depending on the budget of the project, a lot of public input goes into it, and some doesn't. Just to be clear, the whole budget for these 6 sculptures for a 2-year loan program is $36,000. So the budget of the city is $100 million, or $100.4 million. So it's a very small amount. And this is not to, I think public input is so valuable in lots of ways. And so, but I've heard many times the argument made that this is publicly funded, and so the public should have a big input. And we actually weighed public input quite heavily. in our recommendation. Nonetheless, if you break it down, and again, this math is not great because everyone pays a different amount in taxes, but there's 63,000 residents in the city, and that goes to about 25 cents per year once you break it down for all 6 sculptures. So it's about 5 cents a sculpture that each resident is putting. And it's just good to keep it in perspective to understand. Again, I don't think that says that we shouldn't take public input. I'm just saying it's something to consider when that aspect of public input is being spoken about. So I think this is what the ad hoc really needs to talk about, and then next meeting we can kind of get into it. And so I apologize for having kind of jumped in, but I'm also excited, and we have 3 speakers, and I think it is an opportunity to at least kind of gauge the temperature of the commission. So
I think it would be really interesting to discuss making it as transparent as possible after reading the public's feedback on both the city website and in public comments and on social media in general. It does seem like the specific reactions that people had to the sculptures that were picked, it seems like they think that like Leucadia was not given all of the options because we're Leucadia, when that's just not the truth. We weren't given the options of sculptures because the artist picked which locations they wanted their arts. So I think maybe making it as transparent as possible to the public. I don't know if that requires letting them see that we only had these choices, and some of them were porcelain and we didn't think they were good for skate parks. But I definitely be interested in discussing that. And I think that the key would be just to make sure that the public, I don't think that they're really that concerned about the nickel that they're spending, but I do think that they just want to make sure that their city isn't being neglected.
I guess I think that any work of art is going to have multiple responses. People are going to see different things in it, and they're going to respond in different ways. It can, someone can love a work of art and it can baffle someone else, and it can, someone else can hate it. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's positive. I think that it's important to think about the criteria that we're going to use, which is what we're tasked to do, and make it a little bit more specific. When I read through the comments that people were leaving, to kind of paraphrase, nobody said this specifically, but it sounded like they were saying, I don't like this work of art because it does not look like what I expect a good, successful work of art to look like. And I think we want to move the conversation away from that, because that's not going to lead anywhere, because we're not going to ever have agreement on something, first of all. So I think that that's a danger. And second of all, I think that the artwork that maybe nobody objects to isn't necessarily the best artwork. I think that art I might not find a work of art aesthetically pleasing. It might not be my taste, but it might be very well done. It might help me see things in a new way. It might bring up a lot of conversation within the community, and it might be, therefore, a successful work of art. And I feel like for, a loan for 2 years, I think if we're going to invite art into our communities, I think we should be open-minded and perhaps discuss the artwork more and be more open to letting things in that might not look exactly like what we think a good work of art looks like. So those are some things that I would like to think about as we kind of move forward with this. I think that's all.
I'd like to say thank you, everybody. In reviewing the meetings, And Mr. Ehlers said, he brought up the three jurying criteria as a reminder. He spoke about it. And they were questions. How will engage the public and enhance, I can't read my own writing, the sense of community. That was the first one. Second one, how will it complement the natural beauty of the site along with context of the natural habitat or urban setting? And the third one, how it connects and reflects the history of, can't read my writing again, the specific sites and the personality of the sites. So these are all questions. And so these were apparently the jurying criteria. And this was before I came on. And this is out of my domain. But when I look at this, I see that these are questions. And now I don't want to get into the thick of things. I don't want to get in the weeds. I think I think we have to get to the bottom line, which is that this needs to be clear. Correct. And we need to hone in on that. So would an ad hoc be involved in taking this and to creating a better system based on these questions of evaluation? And then that would be the first point of departure, because then it will help to select the two spots. So what do you think? Would the first thing be to develop an ad hoc to develop the criteria and get that honed in, and then work on the vacant spots?
Well, maybe we can talk about our ideas of the criteria now.
That would be getting into the thick of things, and we want to stay with. So right now we're probably focusing on the ad hoc, going through this first. So we don't want to dig into it too much. That's what my understanding. What do you think?
Maybe I can broaden it out again. We were just kind of going down the line, getting general reactions to being tasked by council with this. Again, I may have left it out in my overview. The real reason, the two major reasons for the rejection of those two pieces, for Leucadia, it was a strong lack of choice, which I'm really glad you pointed that out, because I also spoke with another juror. Both of you are Leucadia residents, and it was actually felt not only that it was the only really appropriate piece for that site structurally, but also that it was the best example of contemporary sculpture, and that was kind of a gift to Leucadia. Nonetheless, the lack of choice was stated, and thus said, the lack of choice, and also it didn't seem to fit the site was a lot of the feedback that council gave as well. And so it even was recommended that specific piece potentially be located somewhere else. This is all background. I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves at this point. I think I want to be able to open up the discussion and have everyone speak up. I also think that's pretty much the work of the ad hoc. There's a lot of goals for the ad hoc. But the main ones would be considering the public art policy, considering the criteria, considering if we would like to use a rating system, and things like that, and how best to thus move forward. Also considering the timeline and the process of how to find sculptures for those sites.
So may I ask, Chair, should we work on breaking that down to two ad hocs for number 5, or two sub ones? The methodology, and then the search for, or the process for replacing those spots. So two sub ad hocs for that.
I've considered multiple ad hocs on this, and we talked to staff, and I do agree that there's too much potential for breaking the Brown Act if we break it down in too many ad hocs. Like my first thing was like, let's make 3 ad hocs and get this done, but each subject kind of overlaps with the other. And so my recommendation is to make 1 ad hoc, not to worry too much in the next month about how to place things at the site. I think that's way out. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen anytime within the next few months, certainly, if even within the next year. And that's what it is. There were 2 appropriate sculptures for each site. They got rejected, and now we're kind of back to the drawing table, but even more so because we've been tasked with this coming up with a new criteria and new methodology. So I'd say 1 ad hoc that focuses on that.
So just to be clear, like what I was hearing from the meeting was that really this ad hoc is really tasked with creating like an evergreen procedural guideline for this sculpture loan program for all of its sites now and in the future to create a system or devise a system in which the public has participation and, sharing their opinion or voting in some manner, but also to ensure that there are choices for each site to be voted on, and that you would increase the number of choices by giving guidelines to the artists about what materials or what kind of structure of the sculptures would be safe in different locations or be appropriate structurally. And yeah, so that's what I got from it, was really they're just looking for guidance in doing that process better to get a better result. Not a better result in the art itself, just a better result in, both the artist, the public, the location, all feeling like they're in agreement somewhat about what ends up being there.
I think that's well said. I think we also have the opportunity with this to understand well what we've been tasked with, and to use our expertise and decide to look at the public art policy in general as well.
I didn't want to forget to say thanks to both of you for being representing us at the meeting, and also sending us for those of us who couldn't be there, sending us the relevant material that was really helpful. And I think what you're saying makes sense, that the groundwork needs to be revisited and recast if necessary, in order to just have a better process so that this kind of thing doesn't happen again, ideally. So I agree with Commissioner Fader and Chair Fox, what you're saying about probably 1 ad hoc that can first address the larger issues, and then I think what you're saying, and then go back to the more immediate or the more particular issue of figuring out what's going to happen at these 2 sites. And maybe by that time there'll be a funding mechanism, just some kind of more generous funding mechanism. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had a question. So, is the priority of actually finding those 2 pieces higher? Right now, what is more pressing?
The criteria is more pressing because that's what we've been tasked specifically by council to do.
So are you saying that if there's 1 ad hoc, then it would basically, their job would be in chapters, work on the methodology. Once that's done, submit a recommendation. Then you can move to the next step.
Yeah, and along the way,
The next step.
Public input is a big one that council values, and so a new method of receiving that.
That could be part of the methodology.
Yes.
Right, okay.
So should we make a
Yeah.
decision to break that down? Or
Well, would anyone like to be on that ad hoc?
I would.
I will say this. So previously, last year, Vicki and I were both on with Irene on an ad hoc for the sculpture loan for the jurying. I wasn't able to actually participate in the jurying because of personal reasons, but there is value in having someone who was part of that process already be on that ad hoc, because there won't be this thing of rewriting the wheel or not understanding what was happening. So I recommend that either Vicki or myself be on it for that reason. I also know that Irene, and then 2 other commissioners, Irene is no longer a commissioner, but I do believe that she is willing to participate in those discussions if wanted. So that would be another thing to consider. So that being said, I saw 3, so why don't you 3 take it, and I've on so much and chair.
Sorry, I wasn't putting myself on that.
Oh,
ad
you
hoc.
weren't?
No.
Do you have something else to say? No.
So who are our people so far?
So who is interested? Commissioner Romer, Commissioner Campbell? Okay, I will too.
Just to
Anyone?
confirm, that was Romer, Campbell, and Fox? Thank you.
So the next time, in our next meeting, then that will have to be revised. It's a little messy to spell out more for you 3, Romer, Campbell, and Fox, that maybe it should be spelled out a little bit more clearly for that ad hoc. Don't you think?
I think we understand. I think we can come up with the goals and present them.
I mean, for the work plan, just to have it nicely.
For the work plan, it's under SLP, Sculpture Loan Program for Leucadia and RSV locations, and then everything that comes underneath it, which is blah, 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 return to council with a recommendation.
Okay, so you 3 will be under the SLP. I got it.
So moving on to Olympus Park, pending outside funding. Oops, shoot, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was so looking forward so now we will go to our public speakers. Thank you. Ladies, please don't take that personally. Not even used to chairing yet, so.
Please.
Jamie, would you like to introduce?
Yes. The first speaker today is Kathleen Lees, speaking on agenda item 8A7. And you have 3 minutes to address the commission.
So after the way it's all shaking out here, I think what I'm doing is offering my input to the ad hoc committee, because that's what I wanted to speak about. And I would suggest that you go to the communities where these locations are and talk to those people before you do anything. Get input from them and have them be people, like in Leucadia where that spot is, there's a homeowners association right there. The homeowners association are probably people who are objecting to it. And get them to work with you and have a meeting. You can just, I have this, with if somebody's going to build a new house, they put up a green sign and it says, this is what we're doing and here's the information, go to the city. Or, everybody's got a QR code now. So get a group of people coming together who want to have input on it, because most people aren't going to want to have input until it goes up and then they'll have their input. But also, because the decision, my job was placing art. And the first thing I learned was not to spend my time talking to anybody who wasn't going to be making the decision. So the way this is going, and it's because it's public art, not private art, is the decision maker doesn't even know what's happening until they're asked to make a decision. And that's why it's so bloody complicated. So I suggest that you go to the community first, get their input and what they see for their community, because that's one thing that's interesting about Encinitas. We're 5 communities, we all have our own personality and we all want something different. And I spoke with Irene because she wasn't able to be here this evening. But one piece of information she put in is that she thought it would have been good to have more information when you do talk to the public, more information about the artists, and an artist statement from the artist saying why they picked that particular piece to go in that location. So now if you have input from the community, you have input from the artists, you can draw this, you can ask your 3 questions that Jennifer was talking about, and it'll make more sense to everybody. It'll give them a direction to go. Everyone I've talked to agrees it should be more money. And the artist statement would go along with, I would like to have seen what the materials were and the size of the piece. And I think that we didn't have nearly enough, from anything I've been involved with the city where we put it out there and we ask for city input, we never get enough to actually make a decision about what most of the people who live here want. So somehow use marketing. That's what Vicki does. Pick her brain. I'm glad you're on this commission because you'll be able to use your skills and use your influence when you have the opportunity to speak to the city council. Talk to them. They're the ones that make the decisions. They're the ones you need to be talking to. Thank you.
The second speaker today is Deanne Sabeck, speaking on agenda item 8A. And as a reminder, you have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Got it. Obviously, Deanne Sabeck, live just up the hill on Arden. Most of you know, I'm one of the artists that has 2 sculptures in the program. And some of you probably don't know that I was on the commission for 6 years and one of the instigators of this whole program. So I have a real vested interest in its success and have been pushing it the whole time. So I'm just going to give you a little perspective kind of from an artist's view, how messy this process has been, and it doesn't need to be. And it should be, honestly, the city should hire a professional to run this program. I've said that from the beginning. And there are people that do that, and that's the way most of these programs are run. It can be a contract labor kind of thing where this is all they do. And that way they put out the RFQs, the RFPs, they get the list of artists, because a lot of them will have a database already to work from, and then they can bring to the commission all the possibilities that they get, and that way the commission has their say in what they want to see, and then obviously it goes to the public, to the council, but that's really the way it should be run. And it really should never, ever, ever go to the public and have them vote things in and then go back to the city council to have them say no. I mean, that's kind of a slap in the face to the artists, and it's pretty, it's unprofessional. It looks terrible. So you want to avoid that. And I would also advise against having well, first of all, an artist should not have to pay their own insurance. That's ridiculous. I've never run into that before. That should be included. It's on the city's property. The insurance should be paid by the city, because a lot of artists aren't going to have a means to do that. I mean, I'm a professional artist and I do a lot of big installations, so I do have that ability, but it really reduces the small stipend that we're getting on this in the first place. So that would be my advice there. And also, don't put too much criterion in these things that, does it fit with the community and blah, blah, blah. I mean, artists just kind of look at that and go, okay, I got to write something that's going to make it, because what's wrong with just having a good piece of art that's dynamic visually, responds. I mean, look at it. That's your first thing. Anyway.
The third speaker we have today for agenda item 8A, the sculpture project, is Rosemary Kimball.
Thank you. Don't ever change your name. You have
As a reminder, you have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Thank you. Well, you have no idea that the three of us have not talked, but what I wanted to say was what Kathleen said, and then what I wanted to say also was what Deanne said. So I can talk about a little bit more of this. I did the paintings at Scripps Hospital years ago, and I knew if I did something in that big lobby without having the input of the people that are there, they would destroy me. And so I wanted them in my brush when I was painting. And I went to there were 500 people at the time that worked there, not including the doctors. And I talked to each one of them, showed them a little movie of what I did, and I had them with me. And I found out they didn't want any blood red. And they had some stuff up there that had blood red, and they didn't want to see that. So things that they didn't want abstract. They wanted impression. They wanted local scene. So I have the ocean and the sunrise, so I was successful. And it's still there after 28 years. So this sculpture is only there for 2 years, but I want you to be successful. And as you move forward to get the other 2 pedestals filled with incredible sculpture to match the quality and excitement of Deanne Sabek's 2 sculptures that are so beautiful, I'd like to put forth about you using a professional consultant. And you have an amazing event that's happened for the last decade of having sculpture in Quail Gardens. It's now called San Diego Botanic Garden. And Naomi Nussbaum, who lives in Solana Beach, is the absolute most incredible professional, and she's currently contracted by the County Administration Arts Commission, and you can ask her which sculptors in Encinitas that would match what the people in the areas where Kathleen was talking about would tell you what they want to see, and match it together and do it quickly. It's unbelievable that the very first idea of this was, from what I read, was 2005. Deanne probably was there. Let's have some sculpture. I have 21 seconds left. I did a lot of traveling in Europe, and when we went from Portugal to Sevilla, we passed through this one incredible town. I think it was Encina, but it had sculpture every block, and it was unbelievable to see that. And Encinitas could do something. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks to each of you very much. As you know, public comment, we can't. Oh. We can't comment or ask questions about what you've said, but I think it's awesome that you guys were here. You women were here tonight. For an agenda item, we can.
Pardon?
For an agenda item, we can open discussion.
We not with
Okay, yeah,
public
no,
speakers.
no. Well, I think at this point we have discussed much, and we will take all of that input, and I'm excited for the ad hoc, and I think we're in a really great place to move forward. I will also say it is really amazing that it's been this long in the coming, and this commission is here while it's happening, and this staff is here while it's happening, and so that's great to be in the present when it's happening, and so to foment it and move it forward is exciting, and making it the best we can. So I think that in a way, it was a bummer to have City Council reject two pieces that I thought were great pieces, and even didn't, again, not good or bad, but just have gone through a good process. But at the long run, I think it's a really great opportunity, and even better in a way, to make the program more robust. So now, moving on to number 7, Olympus Park. There's a opportunity for an ad hoc for that one. There's not present funding for it. But if that's something anyone's interested in diving into.
That also connects back to that fundraising question about things that you could fundraise for.
Mm-hmm.
That is an item we would need the funding for, so
Mhm.
you could
Right.
part of your work over there and part of your work here in number 7.
Okay. So no interest in Olympus Park, or?
I'm happy to join that one. I think I've been part of a similar ad hoc with Kathleen dating back a little ways, and we hadn't come up with anything yet, but I still have hope. I like the park, and so, I can continue to put leads out. And
Okay,
try to come up with
fantastic.
something.
So Commissioner Hebert, are there any other commissioners interested in that one? Okay. And then for artwork donations, that is something that if something does come up to the city, and we have something.
An application has been received that you will be reviewing at your June meeting.
Okay. So if an ad hoc wants to be assigned to that, you may participate more deeply in that process, potentially.
And you can form that at your June meeting, too.
Okay. So maybe we'll wait for that. Bless you. Okay. So we'll move on to performing art, number 8, research-free and low-cost community engagement program, possibilities that use the Steinway D piano at the community center, and make recommendations to city staff.
Marakovitz.
Okay. Anybody else? Moving on to number 9, the ad hoc will continue the work from 23-24 work plan to support the youth piano concerto competition planned for June 24. And I know this past Saturday that was really exciting, got juried, and I'm hoping that Jennifer has an update for us.
Sure. Yes, the piano competition. So this item actually has kind of overlapped from our other work plan, so because it goes into June. So this has been a year in the making since I would say last June, and was launched in October. And we just waited and waited until March when we had the applications come in, and there was a juror for screening. And then another 6 weeks later, we had the live competition on May 4th, on Saturday, and that was very exciting. Personally juried for that, and I would say that was very exhilarating. So we're moving to the next phase of it, which will be the winner's concert on June 15th at the community center. And so it's moving into a different phase now of synthesizing a program with with the city's partnership with the North Coast Symphony Orchestra. Meanwhile, the ad hoc is still active, such as some PR work, and Commissioner Aber, pardon me, was part of that, and with his terrific writing skills, right?
Thanks. No, I just have contacts. That's my only value. But no, but yeah, if the question is, I mean, I'm happy to continue being part of that in the new iteration, because we already talked about putting together a press release for the concert in June. So yeah.
And so, when will the winner be announced?
They will receive emails this evening.
And so they will be notified, and then when will the public know?
As soon as we can get it onto the website,
Okay.
which will be this week.
Great.
It happens to overlap with a number of other things, such as artwork installation, some other staffing challenges. So we're going to get it up as soon as we can, but they will all be notified this evening.
Great.
I want to say one other thing, that what was surprising is that, like from the beginning when we launched this, we didn't know what would happen, and all you could do is wait, because these pieces of music are very, very difficult, and it takes months and months to learn a piece like that, and we didn't know until, like I said, until March occurred. Surprisingly, I think that the word has reached farther than I thought, and many people who were involved or applied were surprisingly in different areas in the country. So it's really exciting to see that this type of program I think it will propel forward into something that could be mainstream with a lot of other types of piano competitions out there. And I was keeping track of and researching different types of piano competitions all over, and I think this type of competition could definitely join in the ranks of a lot of other ones. The caliber of the performance just blew me away on Saturday, so it's amazing. Thank you.
Well, I commend you're really coming up with and inaugurating, and all of the work that you've done, partnering with city staff and then with the orchestra, and I just think it's very cool. And yeah, looking forward to going to that concert.
Yes, thank you.
And great for the press release, and that's good to know as far as like tapping into that for many events that happen throughout the city too. Okay, so Commissioner Morakovitz and Commissioner A. Barrett are on that ad hoc. Is there a third that's interested? Not right now. Okay, so we will move on to visual art, number 10. This is an ad hoc will assist city staff with recommendations, planning, and implementation of Art Night to include a variety of public engagement programming. I know we had one last year, but this is a new year, and so we can have a new ad hoc.
And this is separate from there's an earlier one about promotion.
This
right?
is separate from promotion. This is really about helping come up with programming and, yeah. Is anyone interested in that?
I would be interested.
Okay, so Commissioner Morakovitz. And as I say, if months pass and then there's still openings, someone wants to get on there, then that's always an option. Number 11, this we already have an ad hoc for. This is for the Visual Art Selection Panel. There's no updates for that right now, unless staff has one.
The application is live, and if the ad hoc would like to start doing some work in strategizing new ways to reach out to artists, to think about how to expand, that might be a good plan. We tend to get a lot of applications from the same artists. We also get feedback after the window has closed that they never heard about it. So it suffers from a little bit of kind of that lack of awareness. And we hear about that and we send it in new ways. But if the ad hoc had the time outside of the meeting to really focus on some new ways, some additional outreach, that would really help.
Could you describe what kind of outreach you've been using so far?
The city's ability is we have email newsletters and the city social media accounts and lists of existing arts organizations and have shared it that way because it can be a really broad task. And a lot of times if it's conversations of reaching out and chatting with artists, 2 years in a row I went to Art San Diego and specifically sought out artists I didn't know from San Diego or nearby, Orange County, within reasonable distance, sought them out and went up and introduced myself and talked to them about it. The majority of them did not even know about the opportunity. So that's one way, and it's a lot of time. So there might be other things like that as a group you could think about and ways to connect with more artists. Mm-hmm.
And that's rolling. The application is rolling, or at what point does it close?
It closes in August for the 2025 exhibitions. So at this point, there's still a good amount of time because there's no benefit to hurrying and getting an application in now versus submitting it in August.
Thank you.
I have another question. Has there been any surveys of artists that have participated in terms of maybe what they liked or what, or perhaps artists that participated and then chose not to participate again, why they might not participate again, or any kind of feedback?
We have some anecdotes from artists who have exhibited and shared information. There are not any artists that I am aware of who have exhibited and then opted not to, other than those who have moved away. Often we get repeat exhibition applications, and we have to try and put a little space so that maybe it's not the same exhibitions all the time. But we do frequently have the same artists or artist groups exhibiting.
And that's also open to any artist anywhere, correct?
It is. The tricky part is they are responsible for getting all of the art here and picking all of the art up. So that necessarily limits it, but I think we say Southern California, but we have had artists from farther away because they spend some time here. Maybe they split their time and the exhibition window that they choose lines up with when they're going to be in town. But we don't put any limits. They just need to be able to get their art here.
Gotcha.
Is there space on the ad hoc for one more space? One more person?
That is full. It's Campbell, Fox, and Romer.
And then just as a reminder, in the public meetings, if you have ideas and want to be able to, this is your opportunity with all 7 of you to be able to have those conversations and brainstorming. It's, if you, outside of this, you have more time to be able to do those things in the smaller groups.
Yeah. Yeah, and definitely, like, you can do that work imagining that you're part of the ad hoc and you just can't speak to us or us to you. Although there is an opening on the next one, which is similar for the ad hoc that will assist city staff and Encinitas student advisory panel with student art exhibitions at City Hall. And so that's very similar. It's just student oriented.
Correct. It's very similar. We are going to focus the City Hall galleries in 2025 to be with student shows. There will be 2 student shows a year and then a permanent exhibition for that third cycle in the middle. And we're very interested in having more student engagement. But initially, we're going to get it off the ground and build it, and they will come. And by launching the exhibition application, we're also going to have some language about having that student committee who might be interested in planning activities around what would happen at their reception, which will still happen on art night, on the corresponding art night. So we're going to be doing both things at once. As you know, our arts coordinator, Connor, left a little earlier than we had planned, and that had been a project that he was doing a lot of work on. So I think we're going to be able to pick that back up next week and convene with the ad hoc to set a brainstorming session and be able to get that moving so that we can successfully get some students submitting. And then they'll be able to, it'll be an evolving process.
Great.
I'd like to be on that.
Yeah, okay, great. So Commissioner Kadakia will be added along with existing Commissioner Campbell and Marakovitz.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then City Council, number 13, draft bylaws for the Commission for the Arts according to guidelines provided by the city clerk and submit them for review by the city attorney and approval of City Council. This is for all of us, and I'm assuming we're
I don't
waiting
have
on that
any new
information?
information just yet. As soon as we do, we're having conversations about how best to do that because all of the commissions, this is on
Right.
all the commissions' work plan. So as soon as I have some more information, I'll be sure and share it with you.
And perhaps we could set an ad hoc for that in far as, or I'll just say this.
Let's wait and see what that process is going to be, and then, because I'm not sure yet.
I will say at this point, it may be just helpful to familiarize ourselves with bylaws. Like I had never read bylaws, so I've been looking at other commissions, talking to other cities commissions, and understanding what the bylaws mean, how they're written. Of course, each city has their own, and each commission will have their own guidelines and limitations. But that would be a suggestion. So if we were to form an ad hoc, that would be all just researching and sharing with the commission a little report about that. But that's something we can also do individually and just bring back for next month as well. Should we just leave it individually? There seem to be a lot of ad hocs. What do you think? Yeah.
So you're saying that everybody kind of do a little research and bring it to the table?
Yeah, it's just familiarizing ourselves so that when the information comes at us, we can look at it with some understanding. And then 14, 15, that is just on for the end of the year. The pending arts advocacy and the literary arts, any updates on those from council?
There is no funding that is likely to be available for that because there are so many competing priorities. This had been one of the things that we chatted about, and it's not that it's not viewed as important, it's in comparison with everything else and with Pacific View launching, that really is the primary focus. If you were to have funding, find a grant or an opportunity that could meet that, it's a pretty sizable chunk, but if that were to be found, then that could be an item that could be included, but not without the funding.
And just to understand that 125,000, is that to pay a consultant?
Correct. Because that is the desire, that was the expressed desire of how to go about this.
And if a consultant was found that was cheaper, would that line item change?
it would have to include the same scope of work, which is fairly expansive, and it would be surprising, given the amount of research we did to come up with that number. That was on the lower end.
I appreciate
It goes
that.
up from there.
Yep. Okay.
I have a question for the literary art. So I know there's no funding, and we had
I apologize, you said for which one?
for the literary art for
Yes.
the poet laureate program. So a couple meetings back, I think it was last meeting, I forget. We did chat about that. There isn't any funding for this to move ahead for now. But can I still be on the ad hoc and just?
Can you please put it right next to your mouth?
Okay, so sorry. Okay.
I never hear you, and I've been here
Okay.
since November.
All
And
right.
you have such beautiful things to say.
Okay.
Please.
All right.
Thank you.
So sorry. I didn't realize I was not speaking loud enough. Thank you. Okay. For this program, I'm really interested in this program. I can obviously do the commissioner-initiated for this, but is there any way I can just start working on this, or can I just do it offline? The only reason I want to bring it up right now to the staff is because I need just direction on
And
how
we
to go about
haven't
doing that.
we haven't received any. We heard the same input all of you did, the mayor expressing an interest in that, but we have not received any additional information.
So basically, I can go out there, hustle on my own, and try and figure out how a program can be put together, and then probably bring it as a commissioner-initiated item, and then go from there.
You could do that.
We could always hear that and then decide to write a letter to council or speak at council to refresh the item in their minds.
Perfect. The reason I'm bringing it up, because after the last meeting, I did look for a few grants out there, national grants, small. They're very small, but they're still there. So I just wanted to know if I should even do the work, if I put in, or even go out there and work, and if nothing happens, I don't want to begin in the first place, I guess.
And I wish I had a more definitive answer, and I just don't, because we haven't heard anything else. So
Okay.
it's hard to know.
Okay, I like to be put on the ad hoc anyway, if I can be on the ad hoc. If not, that's okay.
So it's at the moment, it's a pending item. The path that you are addressing about being a commissioner-initiated item, that is a path you can take whenever you'd like to.
Sure, thank you. And I apologize for the...
So,
I'll emotionally back you doing that project.
Tim, I didn't hear you. I'm so sorry.
I will emotionally
You back me. Okay, thank you so much.
so to clarify that pending state, so you're waiting for some money to fall out of the sky, right? So would it behoove for the commission to, if we come by some grants or something like that, to send it to you and to have you check it out?
That's for the arts advocacy, pending the funding for the consultant for
Yeah,
the
for
master
this.
art plan.
Yes, for that one.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
we're talking about this one. So if we find something of interest, you're going to send it for you to check it out.
So at this point, because this is pending funding, it is my understanding that the path would be to identify the funding and then be able to go back to council and show how you've identified the funding so that you could then get this item approved to be part of the working, to move it from pending to active.
Yeah, I have too looked at some things too. So, but some of the things are a little obscure to me, and that's why I would send it to the staff to check out to see how it could possibly plug in somehow. It might require some like some kind of partnership, that kind of thing. But I'm just saying that I'm available as a member here to do that. I could send off anything that I think that might be worth checking out, and then you can go from there.
So because this is not something that we as staff have been given direction to work on by City Council, that is a bit challenging, and our list of things to work on is fairly extensive. So I believe in order to get this moved from pending to active, it would have to be, this is the funding, and then you could go back to council and request to have it moved from pending into active. Staff does not have any latitude to work on something that we have not been directed to work on. And this is, I'm not sure if you remember, we had a lot of conversations about things that I work on. I get my direction from my supervisor, who, everything feeds down from City Council as to what the priorities are. And this is one that we actually heard council talking about. Perhaps there was a mention in one of the meetings that perhaps a year from now, this might be something that comes up. So right now, it's sitting in that limbo phase.
You were just saying, okay, you have to be able to identify the funding.
Correct.
Right. So, for example, looking at random grants, there's they always have like a timetable, and I've seen those. But so I can as a commissioner, I can send you the link to check out, but that's all I can do.
Staff, I think at this point, anything that's not on our work plan that says pending, it's pending. Staff can't work on anything that's not on their work plan. We have different work plans, of course, but
They align.
They align, but we're, on this item that's pending, it sounds like if there's not a budget and it's not on their work plan for this year, which it's not, then yes, if you find funding, it sounds like the course of action will be to bring it to City Council, because City Council gives staff direction, and they've said, no, this is not on your, it's not happening this year.
So for example, if you were to identify a grant, often infrastructure grants might allow for things like that, and it clearly identified something that either outright said an arts master plan or something similar, you could potentially do that more research, confirm that it was something that could work, and then if the commission were to decide that that was something you wanted to pursue, you could then make a recommendation to City Council to allow you to turn that into an active item because you had identified funding. And there might be a donor who's willing to donate that amount of money. But that would be research done and confirmed through your work if you so choose.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that concludes the work plan discussion, unless anyone has any other comments. No. Okay. So we will move on to receiving.
Oh, excuse me. Literary art, but that's still a pending item too.
We discussed that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just, all right, leave it all.
So we'll move on to the 9A Cultural Arts Division report by Administrator Murphy.
I think we've touched on pretty much everything. We are, as I shared, Connor will be moving to the East Coast and left us a little sooner than anticipated, so we are recruiting to fill his position. And very excited that Olivia and Lou, who I think you've all had a chance to meet, have really stepped up and helped us keep the ship moving in the right direction. And I'm really, really proud of the work that they're doing. and appreciate all the support from the commission as we continue to keep all the programs going. And I think that's about it. We're in the plans for all the things coming up for summer and fall. And as soon as we have those things solidified, we'll be able to share. I'll have more information on those kinds of things coming at your June meeting.
Thank you. So the commission calendar.
Wednesdays at noon, again, such a popular thing. If you know of anybody who wants to experience amazing music, it is our Wednesdays at noon. It never disappoints. We are booked through spring 2025. It is remarkable, the talent and the audience, which then leads me to the next part, which is if you're going to go and enjoy said concert, please show up by about 11:30, 11:40 if you'd like to be sure you get a seat. Seating capacity in that room is limited to 170, and we are unfortunately needing to turn people away because there's just no space. Because Juneteenth is on a Wednesday in 2024, there will be no concert on that day. City offices are closed, the library is closed. Music by the Sea, the last two performances of this season are on May 31st and June 14th, and I put them both on this calendar because they're so close together. That will return in January for 6 concerts in 2025. And then, of course, our orchestra concert with our youth piano concerto winners will be on June 15th at the community center, and tickets should go on sale for that next week.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely have to make sure I get a seat.
All right. So thank you for that report. And we will move on to 10, Commissioner Member Initiated item that we can finally receive from Commissioner Hebert.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad we can finally talk about this, and I'll try to keep it concise. I'll just give a little bit of background. This has come up before the commission before, but not since I've been on the commission, and suddenly I find myself the senior member of this group. So I don't think we've ever had a chance to talk about it. But if you had a chance to read this proposed letter, it gives a lot of the background, which is the fact that for 30 years there's been this possibility of having a theater company for Encinitas. This would accomplish something that's separate from Pacific View, which doesn't really have a, it's about instruction more than having performance. And I can imagine that our new director can talk about the kind of community identity that comes with having a theater company. I went to a lot of productions at Coronado Theater, and really great work done there. Coronado's lucky because it has LEMS players as well. So, but it really is something that energizes the community. New Village Arts has been a fantastic success in Carlsbad, and the background with the theater pad in Encinitas is that most recently there was a North Coast Rep which has a theater in Solana Beach and has been really an institution there for decades. Was under an exclusive negotiating agreement for a couple of years, I think, to build a theater in Encinitas, and I believe that has expired. So I brought this up now because I just would hate for this to, it's been so long now without anything happening, and I would hate for it to be kind of forgotten about, because I think it could be a really powerful thing for our community to, finally have a resident theater. The stumbling block, I think, for theater companies that have tried to do this has been money. Because it's building a theater from the ground up rather than in Coronado. I think the community center existed right before the theater moved in. But, again, it's something that I think could really bring a sense of identity for us. And so this letter, if we want to talk about the wording a little bit, I don't know if anyone has thoughts on what I've drafted here, or any concerns or edits or anything like that.
I had maybe a little word,
Yeah.
like the last sentence or so. where it says "we believe," maybe you could say the Commission for the Arts believes.
Mm-hmm. Just to make that more specific.
Yeah, just a suggestion.
Yeah. Thank you, yeah. I think that
What
makes sense.
kind, before we jump into the letter, what kind of support do you know that Encinitas residents have for this project?
I can speak to, I have background with this from writing about it when I was covering theater for the Union Tribune and writing stories about, I think, at least 3 different theater companies that tried and unsuccessfully to make a go of this. One of them was Intrepid. The last one before North Coast Rep was Intrepid Theater Company, which had a really good community following. I think there was a sense of real energy around people in Encinitas when they were trying to make this happen. They produced at SDA for a while and got really, always had really strong attendance. They subsequently ran educational programs with the city, which did really well, I think. And then they ended up moving out of town and are running a big operation, I think, in Canada now. But that's kind of my main insight, that when you had a theater company that was really invested in the community, there was a really strong response. And I think, to me, that's indicative of kind of a thirst for something local, in terms of live theater. Not to mention, and that's aside from the fact that creating a space would, depending on what the arrangement was, it could become a space for other companies or artistic, other arts groups to perform in ways they, as fantastic as Pacific View is going to be. It's not going to offer those same kind of options for being able to bring a good size audience in. So that's a little bit of a long answer to your question, but yeah.
Are there other comments from other commissioners?
Well, I was wondering if this were read to the city council, what would be the anticipation of a response?
Yeah, I think, part of the reason that I am bringing this up is because as the liaison to the Cultural Tourism Committee, I mentioned this at one of the first meetings I attended, and not only do we have a lot of new members on this commission, but the city council itself has quite a few, at least relatively new members. And the people who were there weren't really aware that this existed. I think it's something that's been around so long that the institutional memory moves on and it gets kind of forgotten about or left by the wayside. So if nothing else, I think it makes sense to remind the city council of this every couple of years. And if it falls upon us to do that, then maybe that's something that we ought to take on it. And I think that to your question, I think if nothing else, the response would hopefully be, oh, I didn't know that was a possibility, or yeah, thanks for reminding us. Not necessarily I'm not necessarily expecting them to say, yes, let's do this today, but again, it's something that has such great possibility that I just don't want the powers that be to kind of forget about it. So, yeah. Does that kind of answer your question? Thanks.
It's such an important potential project for the city, I believe, and it's great to hear that sense of being a reminder, right? Because there has been so much transition with council, with staff, with everything, especially with these contracts going in, and then falling apart. And so I think it's important for us as a commission to keep those, keep all of those parts of cultural arts here alive in the minds of council and alive in the minds of the public as well. I do question the relevancy to send City Council a letter about this right now. Because our work plan was just established, because Pacific View hasn't yet opened, because the priorities are focused and delineated for the year ahead. And I also am really excited for us all to work together and get to know how to work together and how to present things to council in a way that's very effective. And so I support keeping this alive, and I support expressing to council things about this. But I'm not sure that this specific letter is the right first letter for us to send to council. And that could be me being like too strategic. I'm totally open to being wrong on that. But that's something I've sat with for a little bit since reading it and kind of keeps pestering me. So I wanted to bring it up and see what other people think. I also want to say we're getting close to the end of the meeting, and so would anyone like to put in a motion to extend? Just to make sure.
Do you think we're going to go past 7 or?
I don't necessarily think we will, but at least then someone doesn't have to be cut off in the middle of the sentence if so.
Okay, I'll motion to extend.
Okay, is there a second?
Sure, I'll second that.
Okay.
You do need to include the amount of time, and until bylaws are established, we're going to go with precedent, which is not to exceed 30 minutes.
Okay, I'll motion to extend 30 minutes.
So just to address your concern, Chair Fox, is it more about the letter or the timing? I heard kind of two different things there. Yeah.
No, thanks. It's mostly about the timing.
Yeah.
And I think
get
the
that.
letter's great. Always your writing is fantastic and clear and concise. And it does the job of reminding. And so I don't think we need to spell out that it is a reminder, but it may be helpful to simply state there's a lot of new people here, a lot of history in this project. Things can be forgotten, and this one we don't think should be forgotten. Maybe, maybe that could. When I heard you say that, it reframed it for me, and I think that's effective.
Yeah,
but when I saw this, it was kind of like we're asking. We want you to know that this is important and this is a huge expense, and we think this is a priority because we're making it one while Pacific View comes on and while there's not funding and all those things. So this, yeah.
No, I totally get that. And as you know, this kind of has been in the works for a few months, and so now we find ourselves at this place in time where Pacific View is really close on the horizon and a lot of other things going on. So, and I don't really know what the status is of whether another negotiating agreement window will open. That maybe that's kind of in the works without anything happening.
It is not something that is within our department. It is that when that negotiating agreement was in the works, that was with the city manager's office. And I am not aware that there is another one. So that is also part of the challenge we have, is that while it feels like this should be in the cultural arts, it's before it's a thing, the negotiating part is in the city manager's office.
Yeah.
So I totally get why it feels like it's here, but it's really there.
Yeah.
I was just going to make one suggestion.
Sorry, point of order. I just wanted to finish the voting on the extending the meeting by 30 minutes. We didn't do that.
Sorry.
So let me just do that
Yeah, I was
really
wondering
quick
about that.
so you can vote, and here we go. I'm just waiting. Okay. Let the record show that the motion to extend the meeting by 30 minutes until 7:30 passes unanimously.
Thank you.
I was just going to suggest that maybe something that would make the letter more, strategic or effective is just to say, like proposing it for the 25-26, budget year or something along those lines. And like you just mentioned, maybe it doesn't need to come from the Arts Commission itself if it's not an arts issue. Not sure the best way to go about it, but
I definitely did not mean to suggest that it's not something that you can do. It was more just to, because some of you may have heard me say that in the past, but just so that you know, as far as which department has had that as part of their work plan, it has been the city manager's office.
okay, yeah. Anyway, that's my only suggestion. I think that your idea of reminding them of, to continue to put this on, the plan in the future is great, but maybe giving more specific direction would be more effective.
Okay, yeah. Well, if the timing is kind of a general concern, maybe the thing to do is kind of wait until, until fall to once Pacific View is opened, presumably, and give it a little more time. And I can go back in, and I think it's a good idea to talk about how maybe with all the turnover, maybe this isn't something that is on everybody's radar. So I'm happy to, kind of, if that's the kind of prevailing sentiment, to maybe table it for a little bit. I don't know if it would be best brought up again as a commissioner agenda-initiated item, but
Currently, it is the only way you'd be
Yeah.
able to do it because it's not on your work plan. It's not in the Parks Rec Arts department even. So yes,
Yeah.
you would need to.
okay. But just is that kind of the prevailing sentiment that maybe this isn't the right time to do this? And yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, if that's, those are yeses down there. Okay. I'm happy to keep that on my calendar as chair. And again, I think it's, keep in mind that it is an important thing. Maybe September is a great time. And between now and then, any added specifics that could be, here are companies that could possibly afford this, or here, anything like that, that's more persuasive.
Yeah, and for all we know, something could happen with it before that So
The other thing is to any of us can go in front of city council and speak as members of the public. So although we can't represent the commission, you can speak as a resident. And in that way, it's like go to every city council meeting and take up 3 minutes and just take 30 seconds of your 3 minutes and be like, just as a reminder,
Right.
So that's another way of planting the seed in their minds now. And then come September, if we feel ready to send a letter at that point, it might have more of a right perception.
Yeah, I will say, obviously, it comes with more force from all of us, but maybe as a way to sort of just set the table a little bit, that might make sense. So, yeah. But at the very least, I'm glad we could, talk this out and raise awareness among people on the commission so that going forward, it'll be something on our minds. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it to the table.
Yeah.
And
Do we need to make a motion or anything to table this, or just the discussion is kind of the?
I believe the discussion is it, and then if we wanted to bring action to it, we would thus make a motion.
Okay.
You could reference the recommended action that was put into the agenda item.
I don't understand that.
So the recommended action is the part that you discuss, and so you can take action on that or not take action.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I guess we're not taking action, or the discussion was the action. Is there a future agenda item that a commissioner would like to add now? Nope. Okay, so we'll move on to commissioner reports. And this is something, it's always at the end of our meeting, and I think everyone gets a little heavy and kind of ready to go. But sharing anything that you've participated in or thinking about or influenced by, inspired by, now is the time. We could also decide on what we want these commissioner reports to be about too. It is still a part of our meeting, so I'll just put that out there. If maybe not right now, but if you all have ideas about what the commissioners' reports can be. And I went to the San Diego Arts Commission meeting, and theirs is listed as something slightly different. So we have, we can change it a little bit too. Does anyone have a report?
Would it be just reporting, like if you're on an ad hoc, would it be reporting something that has occurred?
On the ad hocs, we'll go through during the work plan. So that will happen every meeting on the agenda. This commissioner report is as a last item at our meeting. Kind of goes down and is an opportunity for us as commissioners to share with each other and the public and staff, maybe not even citywide events or city-run events, but anything in the arts community or culture community that you've experienced that's worth just giving a shout out or a report on.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might share something that's been it's been on the website, on the piano concerto competition website. There's a link to the rubric. And I just wanted to maybe share with you as colleagues here, as artists, and I'm in the field of arts education. And as an educator, it seems like, and in my field, we are always, not only are we teaching, but we're always seem to be having to always prove our existence, and it's tiring doing that advocacy. A colleague of mine was going to be retiring, and she said that she was looking forward to not having to do that anymore. But the advocacy, like, the arts are really important. But anyway, I've done a lot of studies, not only as being an educator, but also, I've performed, and I've honed in more into education, and I just wanted to share about that. It seems like, as we know, there's high stakes testing in education. There's, in English language arts and math. And that seems to always be on the front, on the front of everything. And VAPA seems to be the fun thing, to do. But, as we know, as wise artists, we know that it's more than that. I wanted to share a little bit about how do you measure the arts and growth. And, when we were talking about things about evaluating art and things like that, in K-12 education, it's we teach that it's a process. And in 2019, the state of California adopted the state art standards. Back in 2014, there was a national adoption of the core art standards, and then each state subsequently adopted their own version. And California, like I said, adopted in 2019. And it was more than depth of knowledge, like this is a quarter note, this is a half note, and it's about that, it's about process. And sometime maybe I'll share a little bit more about that. But there are 4 artistic processes: create, and we call them the 3 Ps: perform, present, produce, respond, and connect. And these things are very important because when we look at art, or we hear art, or we see art, whatever form it might be, that is not, the product is not the be-all and end-all. because it's like the iceberg on the top. You see the iceberg, but you don't see that there's this underneath. There's an iceberg underneath. And that's the process of how you get there. And nowadays we teach students that it's not about the product, it's about working through that. So how do we create things? Well, it starts with imagining, and you work through the process. And connecting, how does it connect with yourself? How does it connect with other subjects? How does it connect with historical, societal, and historical, I just said that, heritage and so forth. So what I'm trying to say is that the importance of measuring, how do you measure it? I just wanted to share a little bit about the process of, for example, in the music. And this has been educational for me because I'm trying to hone in more on how do you measure art, if you want to measure art. And in the music experience that we had, again, the rubric is available on the website. We wanted to consider that this is objective as well as subjective. And if we didn't have the subjective element, then we would be robots. We would be all objective, like math, English language arts, whatever, and getting scores. But it's inevitable to have subjective art and the subjective measurement. That's important. We have to have that. If you ever have a chance to look up at this rubric, our rubric for music, and you can think about this, how can this compare to other genres and art? But in music, we broke it down to musical style, technique, phrasing, dynamics, pitch accuracy or note accuracy, rhythm, tone quality, stage presence, and overall preparation. So that's 9 standards. And each of those had, to measure it objectively, you have different columns: excellent, good, fair, weak, and insufficient. As an educator, I have learned that you have to have quality indicators. You can't just say, oh, I like that or I don't like that. You have to have some way of doing that. So you have to choose words in your rubric such as consistent, mostly, sometimes, not so much, or lacking altogether. So that provides the objective type of component for gathering data. So for example, excellent would be, I'll sum it up.
Okay.
I'll sum it up really quick. I'm sorry. Excellent would be, for example, a 4.5 to a 5.0. Good would be a 3.5 to a 4.0. Fair, 2.5 to 3.0, and so on and so forth. So that would provide the objective. Now, the range, for example, between 4.5 and 5.0, that's where you as an artist or an evaluator would use your subjective reasoning for that, because everybody has a different view on how they look at art, how they see it, and also considering that process. So I just want to talk about that. I'm sorry I babbled, but as we talk about this for many different things, it's important to understand that there is an evaluation process that you can create, and that not only gives the value that we all appreciate of art, but that's it's very important. Okay, so I'm sorry I babbled a little bit too much.
Thank you. I think it's important to remind ourselves about some of those aspects of why we're here and what we're doing. I also think that a little straddles on point of order there, because a commissioner report really is to share information with the public about what's going on, but I could be wrong about that. It's a good place to educate. I think if you want to get deeper into it, do a commissioner agenda item where you're presenting.
I was just sharing that because that was based on the experience of this past weekend. And as I created the rubric, I was kind of educating myself about it, and I ran through it many times. And I just made connections about, a lot of other things, a lot of other genres of art. So that's why I brought it up.
Okay, yeah, no, it makes sense. Thank you. Any other commissioner reports? Okay, we will conclude the meeting at 7:07. And just as a, or I guess, yeah, we'll just conclude there.